Konnichiwa, Machi des, and I'm back with one of my walkthrough videos, and today I want to show you Machi Koro. Now, Machi Koro came out last year in a Japanese edition, and I think in Essen they also had a very limited English edition, and it sold out. I think it was one of the hidden gems of Essen 2013. And the version I have here, although it looks like it's a Japanese version, it's actually an English pre-release of the second edition that will come out in July by Pandasaurus Games. There are many other language versions, Polish, French, German, planned over the course of 2014. What's it about? First of all, it's for 2 to 4 players, ages 7 and up, and it plays in about 30 minutes. The designer is Masao Suganuma. If I'm not entirely mistaken, the name Machi Koro translates as a village roller, which makes sense because in this game you're rolling dice to build up a little village. And these different buildings or establishments, as they're called, that you can place in your village, all have a range of numbers, or just one number. And if a die roll on your turn or on somebody else's turn, depending on the kind of establishment, comes up, then that building pays out. And on your turn you can buy new establishments and basically create your own tableau with a certain probabilities of the different establishments triggering, and you can try to focus only on certain numbers, so you get big payouts, or try to spread across all the numbers, although that's not entirely possible. And because of this, it has been compared to Settlers of Catan, because there you also base your settlements according to the probability of 2 dice rolls, but this is a little bit different. And to actually demonstrate how exactly it plays, I will now show you a full 3-player game. Have fun! And as always, let's take a brief look at the components first. Before that, let me remind you that this is a pre-production copy, so the components are probably due to change. I actually think that the cards are very much final, at least they look this way, but I think the money will be different and the dice are mine anyway. I'll also use some colored markers again to better reference and distinguish the different players. Okay, let's see. In the middle of the board we have the display of establishments, and these are just laid out type by type. For these purple ones you only pick 1 per player, so since this is a 3-player game, 1 was left in the box. And you can basically arrange them any way you like, but what I've done is arrange them by the die number in ascending order. And this is basically the supply that the players can buy from. Then we have a supply of money, 1s, 5s and 10s. And then each player starts with the same stuff. He starts with 3 money, 2 establishments, a wheat field and a bakery, and also 4 landmarks under construction. So they are not in effect yet, you have to build them. They have a certain cost to build, and whoever builds his landmarks first will be the winner. And then we're already able to start the game, and let's just say the blue player starts. What you do on a turn is very simple. You just roll 1 die, and then you'll see whether it triggers any establishments. And here is where the different color of the establishments comes into play. Blue establishments can trigger on anyone's turn, green can trigger only on your turn. So basically, we now have rolled a 6, we check all our buildings, it's both any turn and our turn. The 6 doesn't trigger anything. Then the other players would check their blue buildings, but of course they only have 1s, so nothing happens on this turn. So what we can do now is buy 1 establishment, and we can spend up to 3 money. And let's just say we try to cover all the numbers, so basically whatever is rolled we'll hopefully be able to get something. That is not entirely possible, but let's try to do this. So let's get an establishment that triggers on a 2, but is a blue one, and that is a ranch. It'll cost us 1 money. And we just put it in our tableau, and then it's already the next player's turn. That's a 3. So the bakery triggers, so he gets 1 coin from the bank. The other players don't receive anything. And then he can buy an establishment, and he can spend up to 4 money. Now he could actually fulfill his first landmark, the station. It only costs 4, but the effect would be that he's able to roll 2 dice, and that would only make the triggering of his establishment rarer, because, well, the 1 couldn't trigger at all, and the 2 to 3 would also trigger less often than it would with 1 die, so that's probably not too good an option. And he decides to buy a convenience store for 2. So his bakery triggers, and also the ranch of the blue player triggers, so he also gets a coin. And he decides to buy a forest for 3. Everybody's wheat field triggers, so everybody gets a coin. And then he buys a cafe for 2. Red cards are basically attack buildings, because whenever they are triggered, you get to steal money from somebody else. And he buys yet another bakery. So what happens first is that the 3 of the blue player is triggered because payments trigger before income. So he gets 1 coin from the yellow player. And then the yellow player gets 1 income, and he decides to buy a ranch. A 2 triggers both his ranch and bakery, so he gets 2. The yellow player gets 1 for his ranch. and the red player gets nothing. Then continuing his effort to get one of every kind, he decides to get a convenience store. That's 5, nothing happens for him, but the yellow player gets 1 coin off his forest. And the red player buys yet another convenience store, so he's really hoping to roll that 4. 1 for everybody for their wheat fields. And he buys yet another ranch. Nothing happens on a 6. And he buys a forest. First of all, the cafe triggers. So he has to pay the blue player 1 money. And then both his bakeries trigger, so he gets 2. And he buys yet another convenience store. That doesn't trigger anything for anybody. And he decides to get another forest. His convenience store triggers, so he gets 3 coins. And he decides to buy a stadium. As I said, these purple cards are a bit special. Everybody can only buy 1 of each kind. So once he's bought a stadium, he can still buy a TV station or a business center, but not another stadium. And all of his money is gone. Bakery triggers twice. But first he has to pay 1 money to the blue player. He decides to get yet another bakery. And that's a wheat field for everybody. He decides to get yet another ranch. His bakery triggers. He decides to buy another cafe. That doesn't do him any good. The yellow player gets 2 for his 2 forests, and the blue player gets 1. He decides to get another wheat field. That means that all his ranches trigger, and his bakery, so that's 4 money. 1 for the blue player, nothing for the red player. And he now decides to pay 4 to build a station, so that's the first landmark completed. And now when he wants, he can roll 2 dice on his turn, but then they're both added up. So he gets 2 coins, the yellow player gets 3 coins. He decides to get another wheat field. So first of all, he would have to pay 2 money to the blue player. He only has 1, so that's all he can pay. But then he gets his 3 income. He decides to get a ranch. Now the yellow player could roll 2 dice, but given his numbers it doesn't make any sense. Nothing happens. And then he decides to buy a cheese factory for 5, which will trigger on a 7, and give him 3 coins for each of his establishments with a bull. So if he rolls a 7 on his turn, he'll get 9 money. He gets 2 coins. The red player gets 1 coin, and the yellow player gets 3 coins. And he decides to get another cafe. So that's 4 gold. And the other players also get money for their ranches. And he decides to buy the last ranch. The yellow player can roll with 2 dice, and he decides to do it. So what he's trying to do is, of course, getting the 7 for his cheese factory. Yes, rolling with 2 dice reduces the probability of these establishments triggering, but on the other hand, it also reduces the probability that his opponent's establishments will trigger. And that's a 5. So his 2 forests trigger, so that's 2 coins, and 1 coin for the forest of the blue player. And he decides to spread his establishments around the new probability of rolling 2 dice. So he gets a furniture factory that costs him 3, and will give him 3 coins for each of his establishments on his turn with these gear symbols, and these are the mine and the forests. That's 1 for his forest and 2 for the yellow player. And while he probably won't roll 2 dice anytime soon, he decides to build the station anyway, because what's done is done. He's lucky. His 3 convenience stores trigger, so he gets a total of 9 coins. He just pays an additional 1 and builds the shopping mall, which now allow him to earn an additional coin from all his establishments with the cup and the, I guess, the t-shirt symbol or something. He doesn't have any with the cup yet, those are your cafes and restaurants, but both the bakery and the convenience store have this kind of symbol. It might be a propped open cardboard box, not a t-shirt. That's an 8. New furniture factory triggers, so he gets 3 coins per gear, so that's 6 coins. So now he has 14. He could buy the shopping mall, but that's of no use to him. He's a little bit short of the amusement park, so he decides to get a mine for 6. It'll give 5 coins on anyone's turn for 9, and also it'll give another 3 when his furniture factory triggers again. The blue player only rolls 1 die. He gets 2 coins from all other players. And then he decides to buy a family restaurant, hoping that the yellow player will roll a 9 or 10 at some point or the other. What happens first is that he has to pay the blue player $3, 1 for each of his cafes, but then all of his bakeries trigger. They will give him 1 coin each, but they actually give him 2 coins each because of the shopping mall, for a total of 6 coins. And he decides to buy another convenience store. So actually I think nothing triggers because he doesn't have a 4 and there's no establishment that would trigger when other people roll a 4. And he decides to buy another forest. So he gets $3 and then he has 11, so he decides to also build his shopping mall. So his cafes and family restaurant will earn him more. And yes, the bakery and the convenience store also. Nothing happens. And red decides to get another bakery. So that's his 3 forests, so he gets 3. Blue also gets 1. And he decides to get yet another forest, the second to last one. Only his bakery triggers. And he decides to spend his 3 coins on yet another family restaurant. 4 convenience stores times 3 coins would be 12, but each one grants 1 more. So we're actually looking at 16 coins. Now for 16 he could actually build the amusement park, but the effect of this one is that if you're rolling 2 dice and you're rolling doubles, then you can take another turn after that one. And right now he doesn't want to roll 2 dice. But since there's only 1 convenience store left, he decides to grab that one for 2. So that's 4 coins. 1 for the blue player and 2 for the red player. He decides to get yet another cheese factory for 5. He only gets 1 coin from his bakery. And he buys yet another cafe. The red player is just lucky. With 5 convenience stores, we're now looking at 20. So basically he pays another 2 and can build the radio tower. That doesn't trigger anything, so the other player decides to not buy anything at all. Everybody pays him 2 coins, and he decides to buy an apple orchard, which will trigger on a 10 and give him 3 coins. 2 for the wheat fields, 2 for the blue player, and 1 for the yellow player. And then he has 16 to buy the amusement park. Now, of course, with the radio tower, he could have rerolled, but, well, he got enough. That's what counts. If he makes a reroll, he always is in danger of rolling a 3, and then the blue player would get a lot of money off him. So the way he did it is actually fine. First, the family restaurant triggers. Now, normally he would get 2 coins, 4 coins, 5, 6 coins because of the shopping mall, but he only has 1, so he has to pay that one to the blue player. And then his mine triggers, so he gets 5 coins. And he decides to buy yet another cheese factory, hoping for the big payout. That's 2 for the ranch and bakery, 2 for the red player, and 3 for the yellow player. And actually, his bakery gives him 1 extra coin for the shopping mall, and the blue player just decides to save his money. So again, he doesn't have to reroll that. That's 2 for his ranches, and another 8 for his bakeries. And then for 4, the red player is able to buy the station, winning him the game. And that was one full 3-player game of Machi Koro. Let me briefly show you the 3 establishments you didn't see in this game. One is the business center. If you roll a 6 on your turn, you can trade 1 non-purple establishment with another player. So basically you can give him a wheat field, for example, and take a mine from him or something like that. And the TV station, if you roll a 6 on your turn, you can take 5 coins from any one player. Finally, the fruit and vegetable market only triggers on 11 to 12. But if it's your turn, you get 2 coins from the bank for each establishment with these grain symbol. And those are the apple orchard and the wheat field, of course. I hope you've enjoyed this walkthrough of Machi Koro. Hopefully I could show you how easy this game is to play, how fast it plays, and of course how luck dependent it is. It doesn't mean there is no strategy at all. You have to, well, decide what to go for, how to combine your establishments. You have also to decide whether you want to put all your eggs in one basket and wait for a big payout, or just hope that you get at least something most of the times. In our case, of course, that strategy didn't work out too well for the blue player. And hopefully with this impression, you now know whether this is something you might be interested in, and maybe you'll pick up a copy when it comes out later this year. I should also mention that there is already an expansion called Machi Koro Plus. This one only exists in Japanese so far, but I'm pretty sure that the publishers who have picked up the base game for the different language editions will also pick up this one at some point, and according to the reviews and comments online, this one is supposed to make the game a lot more interesting. And I guess then I'm already done. As always, thanks for watching, have fun playing, and until next time. Bye bye!